It's time for a Mavericks Today mailbag as we are just days away from the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics. He's Jeffrey Cooperstein. I am Harrison Graham. We're going to take all of your questions, hashtag Mavs or Super Chat to get those questions answered here on Dallas Mavericks Today.
Tony is all of us. He says, I can't believe it. We're back. Worth the wait. It was a long 13 years, Tony. It sure was. You said you were a freshman in high school. I was too. I was a freshman in Flower Mound Marcus High School here in Texas, and I remember living and dying on every single play in that Mavs Heat series. I watched it in my bedroom away from everybody else. I can't wait for this series. It's going to be fun. It was a long time, but it is worth the wait.
Yeah, I mean, I was going into my senior year of high school. It was a heck of a series. The Game 2 comeback is an all-timer in the history of NBA Finals history. Now you're back 13 years later. It's exciting, and I think a very winnable. I'll say this, Coop. I actually think on paper this is more winnable than that series.
Yeah, they had the Avengers. They had LeBron, and they had Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and Udonis Haslem, and all. They had a bunch of Hall of Famers on that team. The Mavs have a chance to win this series.
No question. Our good friend Omar Burner, he says, I think Maxey and PJ will split minutes. Gaff and Lively as well, or think that there will be a blend of Maxey and PJ together on the floor and vice versa. I do not think Maxey and PJ will split. I think if there's, 50 minutes between those two, PJ is going to get 35 of them. But I do think Maxey will play. And Gafford and Lively will probably split, and Lively might get a few more minutes, but they're gonna play all 48. I think the last two games of the T-Wolves series proved that especially the last one when Maxey was back with Lively back, that they still played a traditional 5 at all times. I would expect that to continue. Now, maybe if the Celtics don't have Porzingis and they go to some small ball lineups, there might be a few minutes here and there where Kleba's in by himself at the 5. But I just think the impact that Lively and Gafford have had the last round and a half, 2 rounds, I expect one of them to be on the floor at all times.
Well, the thing with Maxey is he can't play north of 20 minutes. So you can't split him. I think his minutes are when Dereck Jones and P.J. Washington are resting. Yeah. That's where you find his minutes. So it won't be a split there, but he does provide value there on the defensive end, so he'll absolutely get in. And like you said, I do think Gaff and Lively will split. Lively probably plays a little bit more than Gafford.
Yep. Luka Doncic, he's going to be lighting that hookah in 3 weeks if they win the championship, or if they lose it too, he'll probably be doing it. If Luka wins the title, is he already the greatest Maverick of all time? You can't say that. I will say this. I think with a title, Luka is probably the best pure player in Mavericks history. I think in terms of just like what everything Dirk accomplished both statistically and just as the face of the franchise in 21 years, I'm not going to hand that to Luka after 6.
Agreed.
But I'll tell you this, I never thought Dirk could be topped in this franchise.
Window's open.
He wins this one, the window is absolutely open. Now, I do think he would have to win multiple to top Dirk just because there's something to be said for the first guy that wins you a title, a guy who plays all 21 years here, everything he did on and off the court, just like the relationship with the fan base. But the door is absolutely open for that to be a possibility, which even as recently as last year, I don't know if I would have said that.
I can't believe we're even having that discussion right now because Luka has been so good for this team. And I know Dirk has mentioned kind of throughout the season, does Luka come to you for advice and yada yada? And Dirk's like, well, no, not really. He's already better than I ever was. Yeah. Dirk can even admit that. But yeah, I don't think he is already the GOAT of the Mavericks if he wins this title. I think if he gets to, the conversation begins, though, because, man, I mean, if he can do what Dirk could never and get the second title in less time than Dirk ever played for the team, I mean, you have to consider it, right?
Yeah, no question about it. Is Luka the greatest Maverick ever?
If they win.
If they win the championship. 77 for Luka, 41 for Dirk. Again, I would say not yet. But keyword yet, like that is definitely on the table if that happens. And I'll say this too, Coop. He's already number 2, even if he doesn't win this series. And from a pure skill standpoint, he is probably the best player to ever wear a Mavericks uniform.
There's a difference between best and greatest.
Exactly.
I think
it's kind of the Brady-Mahomes argument. Like, Mahomes is more talented and also wins a ton, but Brady won 7.
Yep.
So Pat's got to close that gap. It's kind of similar here. Like, Luka has a more complete game than Dirk, but what Dirk did for over 2 decades with one franchise, that's going to be tough to match in terms of a GOAT conversation. Shout out to Wasim. Appreciate the super chat. Hey, Harrison and Coop. Go Mavs. What do you think about the Celtics playing close games against overmatched teams? Is that a sign or Boston coasting? It could be a sign. It definitely could be coasting because Boston never has really been under pressure in these playoffs. I know in the first 2 rounds they lost game 2 at home and they went on the road 1-1, but you're talking about a Heat team without Jimmy Butler. That, to me, that's just no threat of an opponent. You're talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, who didn't have Jared Allen, and they had a couple other guys banged up as well. And it's just the Cavs, who are have inferior talent compared to the Celtics. And then Indiana, who we love Rick Carlisle, nice story, Coop. I know there were some close games there, and Indiana probably should have won a couple of them, but it is still Indiana. Like, if Indiana was in the West, they would have lost in the first round to just about any of the top 10 teams in the West, in my opinion. So,
little bit of both.
I'm not taking anything away from the Celtics. You win 64 games, you're doing something right. I also don't think they're nearly as battle-tested as Dallas.
Yeah, I think that's where the Mavs do have an advantage, and we'll talk about those in just a second. But the Mavs have gone through the gauntlet here in the Western Conference playoffs. To win this West, by the way, that has like 12 probably really good teams in it, it is a remarkable feat. And I think the Mavs have kind of gone through it since March. It was those games in Sacramento where this thing really started, when the Mavs ended up winning both of those.
Yep.
And they've been playing more or less playoff pressure games ever since then. So they've been through it. And I think they're ready to face their toughest test yet, which will be this Boston Celtics team.
No question. Noah Turner, what advantages and disadvantages do you think the Mavs have on the Celtics?
I think that I'll start with the disadvantage. I think the Celtics have more athletic bigs who can, well, maybe not athletic, but bigs who can stretch the floor out and shoot more, whereas the Mavs really don't have that. And that'll be a difficult thing to defend, especially if Porzingis is playing.
Yeah, I think if Porzingis plays, they have two fives that can play 5 out with. So, the Mavs haven't really faced that in the playoffs. I mean, a little bit with OKC because Chet can play out there, obviously, but not with the Clippers and certainly not with the T-Wolves, outside of when they played a Cat and Nas lineup together, which did happen some, but not consistently. I think the advantages they have, I think Dallas is unquestionably better in the half court.
Yep.
Celtics don't have a true floor general. Like, they'll play through Tatum some. They'll play through Brown. They have 3 or 4 guys they can play through, but they don't have a guy where you could say, hey, just go initiate a couple of different sets, a pick and roll, pick and pop type of set, some back screening, let Luka dictate. They don't really have that. So it really is going to be a chess match. I think these teams are, at this point in the season, are pretty evenly matched, which is why this is what the finals is.
And by the way, with the chess match, give me advantage Jason Kidd over Joe Mazzulla any day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you know about Kidd is he's going to find answers defensively.
Yep.
There could be some challenges on the other end, but you don't need Kidd to be a masterclass offensively because you have Luka.
Exactly.
He can find the solutions for you. So, that's a valid point. MFFL Kev, how would you rank the best players in this series? Let's say Porzingis is healthy. I would go Luka 1, Tatum 2. I would lean Kyrie 3 over Brown. I'll say this. Brown has been pretty damn good in the playoffs, but again, you have to factor in who they've played. Brown 4. I'd go Porzingis 5. And then maybe Dereck White or Drew Holiday 6 and 7.
And then get to Lively, Gafford, etc.
Lively, Washington. Then you swing back to Boston. So, look, the Celtics starting 5 probably packs more punch. But if you have the 2 of the top 3 players, that kind of evens out. And I think Lively is easily the most impactful player off the bench in this series.
Yeah, because Sam Hauser or Peyton Pritchard, if Al Horford is on the bench, if Porzingis is back, he doesn't really
Horford's good,
he's good, but he doesn't fare me as much as Lively. It's a very even series is kind of what I'm thinking as well. Yes, like you said, Mavs have 2 of the 3 best players, But Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown obviously are no slouches whatsoever.
No,
So
they've been through a lot of these series at this point, too.
These are teams with loaded rosters, frankly, and that is why they're here in the first week in June getting ready to play the finals.
Who do you guys think has the better roster in this series? Type C for the Celtics or M for the Mavericks? Let us know in the comment section below. And don't forget to join us. We'll be live for every single game starting on Thursday night for Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Mavericks versus Celtics. First 2 games in Boston, next 2 in Dallas, and then it'll go Boston, Dallas, Boston if it does go to 7 games. We'll be here for all of it. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications. We will have live coverage. Okay, Nick Roshkowski. Who does the Celtics put on, Luka, Brown, or Tatum? This will be interesting, Coop,
Very.
And I think, we'll definitely dive into some potential matchups and some different looks each team could show. Maybe that's early next week. But this is just a hunch. I think Tatum takes the Luka assignment initially.
Yep.
Because he's longer than Brown, and he's got enough upper body strength to at least hold his own. He's not as strong as Lou Dort, but he's thicker than McDaniels, so he's kind of in between those two. Like, he's almost as long as Jaden. He's not as big as Dort, but he's bigger than McDaniels, so I think Tatum will take that on initially. I think as far as Kyrie goes,
I think it's Drew Holiday.
I think it starts Holiday, but you'll see some Dereck White there as well. But then whichever two are guarding those two initially will definitely get some time because you don't want Tatum, if you're Boston, guarding Luka for 40 minutes a night.
Absolutely.
I think you'll start him on Luka. You'll finish games with him on Luka in most games, I would guess. But Brown's going to get that job.
Dereck White
and Drew Holiday at times might get that assignment. So I think Boston is not well equipped to stop Luka. No one is. But they do have the ability to throw some different guys in them, where Minnesota, it was, they had to play Kyle Anderson because they were searching for answers. So I do think that is something that, Luka's going to have to figure out 3 or 4 different guys where to attack their weaknesses.
Yeah, it'll be a fascinating matchup. I think you're right. I do think it's going to end up being Tatum to start and finish games, but what happens in the middle? And where does Luka decide he really wants to attack? If he gets the matchup with Brown, is that the one where he decides he wants to go downhill? Or even if it's Holiday, is that the one that he tries to attack as well? And don't get me wrong, Drew Holiday is one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, but like you said, I don't think any team's well equipped to stop Luka.
I also don't think Holiday will get on. They'll put him on Luka much. I think they'll use him more on Kyrie because I think we just saw, if you're not strong, you can't stay with Luka.
Yeah,
and Holiday, as good as he is, he's long, he's athletic, he's not a thick defender. Like, I think they'll use him on Kyrie much more significantly than Luka. Ghost of Red Auerbach. Kyrie was a joke for my Celtics, but it seemed like he's really matured in his time with the Mavs. Should be a great series. Kyrie said something pretty interesting after the Mavs beat the Timberwolves. I didn't even know this. He had mentioned, I think he was on with Scott Van Pelt of ESPN. He said that because Van Pelt asked him something similar, like, hey, you just seem like you're playing with more joy now. And he said that he had, maybe this has been documented, Coop, if not, I didn't know. He had lost, I think he said several people close to him in the last 3 or 4 years, and that impacted his joy for the game, which if you don't have joy, then your leadership's not going to be there.
Exactly.
Being a consistent good teammate's not going to be there. What did we talk about when they made for the trade? Is this guy going to be available? Well, if you're not enjoying the game, you're not going to rush back from injury. Yep. So, it just seems like he has found happiness again, and I think Jason Kidd deserves credit for that. I'm sure, people in his personal life deserve credit for that as well himself, just, finding, what makes him tick like we all do. We all have things that we want to chase and want to do that make us happy. So whatever that is for him, he seems to have found that both on and off the court, which has been paid volumes for the Mavericks because has anyone changed a narrative around themselves as quickly as this guy has?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on the record for not standing this guy before he got here.
Absolutely.
I will admit it. I thought he was a fraud in Brooklyn. He was never available. And he comes here and he's a totally different guy. I think it just goes to show that people can evolve. People can mature. You don't know what's going on in people's lives. Like, there's a lot of shit people are dealing with that people don't know about. And these guys are in the spotlight 24/7. So it's easy for us to say things and be like, oh, this guy is, you can't trust him. He can't do that. things change, man, and they are not even close to at this stage without him and his guidance and his leadership. I don't think there's any question about that.
A happy Kyrie is a firing Kyrie, and me and you both can't believe that. I don't think anyone in the world can believe that this trade worked out as well as it has. I mean, for the Mavs to be in the finals 13 months after this trade is frankly unbelievable, and if you would have told me that, I would have called you an insane person and you need to go seek help.
I mean, even if you told me, hey, this is going to be successful, I think it's gone beyond that. Like,
absolutely.
I think even the Mavs are probably a little
They're
surprised
like, oh my God,
at how much this has worked. That was definitely a calculated risk by Nico Harris.
I was going to say credit to Nico, credit to Mark Cuban and Jason Kidd and all of the support staff at the Mavs who have kind of made this thing happen and made Kyrie comfortable here. It's worked great, man, and you're 4 wins away from doing something really, really, really special.
No doubt about it. Show some love to Kyrie. Get the 11s down in the chat. Hey, just life lesson. You can change, man. The perception can change, and it's not always appropriate to judge a book by its cover. You never know what is going on. But we can't wait for the NBA Finals. We hope you're with us every step of the way. Hit the subscribe button. It's youtube.com/MavsTV. Mavs Celtics Game 1 on Thursday night.